So this entire thing, it's an asset, and it's also a protocol, but it's also an ideology and a technology. And if you think about it as technology, ideology, protocol, now it's spreading like other protocols, like the English language, right? Like base 10 mathematics. There are certain protocols that get very, very powerful. And once they spread throughout the entire human race, it's pretty hard to rip them out of the human race. Just like it's hard to get rid of the knowledge of fire or electricity, right? It's just hard to remove it. Once it's here, it's here. So Bitcoin is that, and it's having a dramatic impact on economics, right? It's engineering crashing into economics for the first time in human history. And now you've got thermodynamics and engineering science and physics and mathematics, and there's a right and a wrong answer, and it means something. So it's having a profound impact on economics, but it's also crashing into politics, right? Because as a nation, I can be a nation, some banana republic in Africa, and I can pass a law saying everyone must keep their money in my bank, and then the exchange rate is half of the free market exchange rate. But that just might not work anymore, because if I've got a mobile phone, I could just bypass that.
Yeah.
Right. So now politicians have to take this into account. 40 years ago, they didn't have to take it into account. So you could control the flow of money 40 years ago. You can't control it now. And so it has an economic impact, a political impact. It's also economics crashing into technology. Put it the other way, Apple Computer may become a bank with $1 trillion of assets, right? You didn't think that you were a software company, but you were a bank, but now maybe you need to be. And so what you've got is this radical new idea that's leaped out of Pandora's box, and it's causing people to rethink technology and rethink politics and rethink economics. And of course, it's an ethical imperative. You rethink ethics, right? Because now you can actually give sovereignty, empowerment, and property rights to billions of people. And so maybe you might even rethink charity, because it used to be if you wanted to give your money to charity, then you have to give it to an organization that's centrally managed. But now, if you want to give money to charity, all you need to do is just buy a bunch of Bitcoin and then just forget the keys, like burn it, and you will have made a ethical pro rata distribution of economic wealth to everybody else on the network instantly forever.
Yeah.
So like, how do I give all my money to the people right now? I can literally, if I have a hardware wallet and I had $1 million and I lose it, I've just given $1 million to the people.
Yeah.
So this is a paradigm shift in the way you think about things. And it's affecting, just like it's affecting corporate finance. I just mentioned, it used to be that, a CFO wants to get rid of their capital as fast as possible and go into debt. Well, what if I just inverted that, turned it on its head and said, now you get to keep all your money? So it's changing the way you think about corporate finance as well. And so I just invite anybody to spend time thinking hard about how this affects your nation, your city, your state, your company, your family, your product, your service, because it is profoundly disruptive and empowering.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When you said, the orange check or the ability to check in on something, I would love that. Unfortunately, I'm not like huge on YouTube, but I'm big enough that people are now scamming people using my name and my face. And it would be nice to be able to, hey, this is, the real Stephen Gardner. And it's going to come from a network that's absolutely secure. That would be really nice. I know we're coming up on time here. Maybe we just one more question. What is your thoughts on the other cryptos that are out there? Last I checked, there was over 17,000 of them. I used to get really excited about them until you brought up the fact of, if they get regulated, just how expensive it is to be a publicly traded company like MicroStrategy or Apple. What are your thoughts on the other ones, or do you not even think about the others because you're just so laser focused on Bitcoin?
Well, Bitcoin isn't the first crypto idea. I mean, people tried 50 times before to launch a crypto network, and they all failed for one reason. They were too centralized. There was an attack surface. Generally, the problem is if there's a corporation or there's a founder and they keep control, if you keep a beneficial interest in the network, you've really created a security, and probably an unregistered security. You're creating an equity. So the only way for this thing to come to life as a protocol is you have to disclaim beneficial interest, and you have to give up control of the network, right? Like if you look at the religions of the world, whether it's Judaism or Christianity or Islam, the founders are all dead. They're gone, right? You have to pay, and they gave it as a gift, right? So there are a lot of protocols in the world that are successful. For example, base 10 math, the English language, the French language. These are successful protocols. Fire, electricity. There are technologies and techniques that are successful. But if Prometheus was still here and wanted to cut, every time you started fire, or Prometheus was tinkering with the fire, somehow it wouldn't quite, have the same energy to it. So what Bitcoin has going for it is Satoshi launched it with the Immaculate Conception and then went away. And those Satoshi coins never moved. And so you don't have a company that controls it. And you don't have a beneficiary. And it was given as a gift to the world. If you want to create an open source protocol, I'll give you another example of a successful one, Linux. It's because Linus Torvalds isn't charging you a fee and it isn't controlling Linux. There are plenty of open source protocols that are successful, but ultimately they have to be given to the community. You have to let go of them. And when you let go of them, maybe they have a chance of living. If we look at all the cryptos right now, Bitcoin is the only crypto network universally acknowledged as a commodity. And that means an asset without an issuer. A commodity is ethically superior and legally superior to a security. A security has an issuer and has a beneficiary, and therefore there is someone that has an ethical obligation to be fair and truthful in their disclosures to the counterparties, right? If I can control the amount of my stock, then I have to be truthful to you about whether I will or will not print 100 million more units of it next week. Yeah. It's just common sense. So the real issue is, out of the tens of thousands of other cryptos, how many of them are assets without an issuer? Well, there might be half a dozen. I mean, we can debate, like, is Litecoin an asset without an issuer, or who controls these things? But it's a debate. With Bitcoin, it's universally agreed. It's been endorsed by 2 heads of the SEC, by the head of the CFTC, by senators, by Congress people, by governors, by mayors, by academics, even by everybody in the crypto community, right? There is no debate that Bitcoin is sufficiently decentralized to be an asset without an issuer. And for it to be an institutional grade asset, for an institution to buy it, it can't be a security. It needs to be a commodity. An institution can buy a registered security. That's like you take Apple public and you issue 10,000 pages of SEC disclosures. They can buy one of those. But if we consider that, Apple stock doesn't make money for the world. Like that is, Chinese can't save their life savings for 100 years in Apple stock, right? You can see why that wouldn't work, yeah. Right? Or the Russian government or nobody in Africa or South America is going to build their treasury on the stock of an American company. So what you need is a commodity. And there's the debate about a few, but they're all 1/100th as big as Bitcoin. Yeah. Then there's a lot of other good ideas and interesting ideas, a lot of fun ideas. Stable coins are interesting. DeFi exchanges are interesting. Crypto exchanges are interesting. NFTs and they're all interesting things, but they're all highly controversial. And there's a lot of uncertainty about the legal status. Like if they're securities, then they're going to be tagged with securities requirements. And right now, the securities regulators in the world have not offered any pathway for a digital security to trade 24/7, 365. So forget about whether or not they're registered or not, right? I can't trade Apple stock on Saturday afternoon on a crypto exchange, even though it's registered. Yeah. You see, so there's not a regulatory path for the other cryptos. Now, I'm empathetic. Like, it'd be nice if there was. I mean, if you want to grow that industry, you need a digital assets framework. But the sad fact of the matter is, the only thing that we have clarity on is that Bitcoin is a commodity, and you will be allowed to own it as digital property. The Chinese have deemed it property. You can own it in China. You can own it in Russia. You can own it in the United States. You can own it in Europe. You can own Bitcoin as property anywhere where property is not illegal. So like maybe in Cuba, North Korea, where it's illegal for any individual to own anything, right? Pure communist regimes, then it's going to be a difficult situation. But otherwise, this is a digital commodity, which is better than any physical commodity, and it's a digital property that's better than any physical property. And there really isn't any debate about that. You've got good clarity on that. And so my view on this is that Bitcoin is a solution that the universe, that the world has agreed on, that has consensus. It's a good thing and useful. Everything else is a murky, uncertain, risky proposition. And so you got to take all of those with a grain of salt.